Chapter 490, Organ Transplant. Sun Bai Chao brought them to sit in the lobby and deliberated for a long time before finally speaking. Since I predicted that ninth young master's organs might begin to fail, I asked him to come over to do a more thorough checkup this time. The results? What were the results? The old madam probed impatiently. Yi Wanwan looked at Sun Bai Chao with a serious expression. Sun Bai Chao said, "There's indeed been a slight improvement in ninth young master's health." Before the old madam could rejoice, Sun Bai Chao changed his tone. He said gravely, "However, this level of improvement is tantamount to a drop of water in a bucket for ninth young master. His health is just like a constant wildfire, a small drizzle can't extinguish it. I took a look and many organs in his body have begun to fail, especially his liver and kidneys. They're in a more dire state." When the old madam heard that, her body trembled and she slumped into the red wooden chair behind her. Yi Wanwan's heart tightened as well. Still, didn't work. Su Yi sighed lightly and his expression turned gloomy. "His organs are failing, so what should we do?" The old madam forced herself to maintain her composure. Sun Bai Chao replied, "We can only perform an organ transplant. Also, the sooner the better, definitely within 3 months, before the organ is completely damaged." "Will he improve after the transplant?" the old madam asked immediately. Sun Bai Chao shook his head. An organ transplant would only treat the symptoms, not the root cause. Ninth young master's body is akin to nutrient-poor soil. When a flower withers and you replace it with another flower, it will only live for a short while. That being said, performing an organ transplant is the only solution at the moment. Although they had a solution, this solution was like quenching one's thirst with poison. Yi Wanwan never expected that things would progress the same way as in her past life. Ever since her rebirth, she had never felt so helpless before. She gave everything her all, but she still couldn't change his fate or ending. Does he really have to go through an organ transplant? Are there really no other options? Yi Wanwan asked, unwilling to give up. Sun Bai Chao said, "According to the progression of ninth young master's condition, this is indeed the case." Yi Wanwan balled her hands into fists and said with crystal-clear eyes, "Dr. Sun, you mentioned just now that Ajio's condition improved slightly. What if I can continue to maintain his health and return it to its optimal state within 3 months? Looking at her resolute gaze, Sun Bai Chao hesitated for a bit. After Sun Bai Chao thought it through carefully, he said, "In theory, if his body can recuperate to its optimal state in such a short period of time, allowing his organs to slowly recover, then of course he wouldn't have to do the transplant. But the possibility of this happening is very low, Yi Wanwan, but there's still a possibility, right?" "There is a possibility, but Miss Yi, you must be aware that ninth young master's condition is too complicated. There are many issues I'm unable to foresee still. His failing organs are like a ticking time bomb. If you're unable to help him recover, his condition and organs could continue to worsen within 3 months, or they might worsen abruptly one day, endangering his life at any moment. A temporary relief which results in a disaster." Chapter 491, Family Clan Meeting. I'll leave you to think it through. Sun Bai Chao sighed, then turned around and left. The old madam was depressed. She looked at her grandson with heartache. "Little ninth, what do you think? How about you get the organ transplant as soon as possible? Otherwise, what if..." The old madam didn't dare to finish her sentence. After a moment of silence, Si Han said with an icy expression, "We'll hold a meeting to decide." When Yi Wanwan heard that, she furrowed her brows. A meeting? After she thought about it, she understood Si Han's intentions. Now that news of Si Han's illness had been leaked, almost everyone in the clan had heard about his condition. Moreover, going for an operation was such a big deal that he definitely wouldn't be able to hide it. Rather than keeping it from the family and forcing them to make wild guesses, it was better to just hold a meeting with the clan directly and discuss this issue with the elders openly. 2 hours later, at the Si family's old residence, all the elders were gathered there and Sun Bai Chao was present as well. Yi Wanwan sat on the sofa in the corner, slightly distracted. Nobody noticed Yi Wanwan, everyone's attention was on Sun Bai Chao. Seeing that the great doctor's son was present, all the elders' expressions were somewhat subtle, guessing that this family meeting would definitely be related to the rumors about Si Han's critical illness and imminent death. Everyone held their breaths and looked at the old madam and Si Han with rapt attention. The old madam was sitting on the sofa with a cane in her hand. If she didn't have that to support herself, she probably wouldn't even be able to sit still. The old madam swept a stern gaze at everyone present in the room, then said in a cold tone, "I know everyone's been concerned for little 9th's health during this period of time. Little 9th's condition is such a serious issue that we naturally couldn't hide it from all of you, so today, I brought Dr. Sun to explain little 9th's health condition. At the same time, there is something we need to discuss." Everyone started whispering following the old madam's words. Health condition. Seems like the rumors weren't fabricated. And it's highly possible that his illness has already worsened to a stage where he can no longer hide it. Among the clan members, Si Mingli subtly revealed a mocking expression. "TSK, I thought Si Han was going to hide this until his death. I didn't think he would choose to address it personally. But I expected this anyway, with his illness becoming more and more serious, this is something that cannot be kept secret for long." The white-bearded elder, Si Ming Rong, spoke with a darkened expression, "Sister-in-law, what exactly is going on with Master's health? All of you should listen to Dr. Sun." The old madam then shut her eyes and remained silent. Sun Bai Chao glanced at the old madam, then Si Han. He started explaining Si Han's condition to the elders. After Sun Bai Chao was done, the old madam said, "Dr. Sun recommends little 9th undergo an organ transplant as soon as possible within 3 months. What do all of you think?" Hearing Sun Bai Chao and the old madam's words, everyone was stunned for quite some time. Following that, there was a huge uproar. No wonder Si Han opened up about his illness, it's already reached such a serious stage. The rumors were true, there's no hope for Si Han. According to what Dr. Sun said, of course we have to go through with the organ transplant. Otherwise, wouldn't Master's life be in danger at any moment? If we go with the organ transplant, at least he'll be able to hang on for a few years, but if he continues like this, he might not even make it 6 more months. Chapter 492, Determine his life or death. With a big family clan like the Si family, it wasn't a problem even if they needed a lifetime supply of organs, much less 1 or 2. Everyone was immersed in fear about the master's critical illness and worried about what would happen if Si Han fell from power, the family crumbled, and how it would affect their interests. They were only thinking about how to quickly prolong Si Han's life. However, nobody considered whether Si Han's weak body could handle frequent operations or tolerate the pain. And it would all be for what? He would barely obtain a few more years to live. In Yuanwan's previous life, the Si family became so chaotic in the end because Si Han didn't have enough energy to cope with those issues anymore. At the later stage of his illness, "Old Madam, Uncle Rong, please find suitable organs for Master quickly." That's right. Otherwise, with Master's condition, anything may happen at any time, then the Si family would be in chaos. I'm afraid the clans and powers that have been monitoring our Si family closely have already gotten the news. Among the ruckus, Si Ming Rong deliberated for a long time before saying, "Sister-in-law, what's your decision?" The old madam's fingers trembled as she held on to her Buddha pearls. She slowly opened her eyes. If Ajio didn't go for the operation, he would be left with only 6 months to live, but because his organs were failing, he could technically die any time. However, if Ajio went for the operation, he would only be able to hold on for a few years, and within those few years, he might have to endure the torture of multiple operations. Not to mention the possibility of a transplant rejection and all kinds of after effects, including the burden on his body. She really couldn't make a decision, but she didn't have a choice. She wanted Ajio to live no matter the cost, even if it was just for a few more days. After a long while, the old madam finally opened her eyes and spoke in an extremely lethargic tone, "We'll act, according to what all of you suggested." Si Ming Rong expected this decision from the old madam. He let out a long sigh and didn't say a word. Everyone chimed in, then we should arrange for the operation right away. We can't delay it any longer. Si Ming-li's eyes glistened and he said, while the master goes for his operation, second brother, all the elders and I will settle everything with regards to the company and family clan. Master, you don't have to worry at all. Take care of your health. TSK, don't have to worry. It was all these people who took advantage of Si Han's critical illness and frantically started to strive for their own gains. In the corner, Yu Wanwan looked at Si Han. He had only spoken a few words throughout the meeting, allowing the elders to determine his life or death, his fate. She knew Si Han himself would have agreed to the operation. In her previous life, he chose the operation as well. So it was impossible to rely on Si Han to veto the decision of the elders. Once the decision was made, Si Han would have to go through everything that happened in her past life. Si Han's physique was unique, so he had a case of extremely serious transplant rejection. From all the operations and transplant rejections, she wouldn't be able to restore his health no matter how hard she tried. His life was safe for the time being, but it was only for a few years. After the old madam's nod and Si Han's tacit approval, everyone started discussing the various matters relating to the operation. Si Ming-rong stood up and said, since nobody has any objections, then the master's operation has been decided. Following this, the moment Si Ming-rong stood up to speak, a cold and clear voice suddenly came from the corner of the room, I object. Chapter 493, Give me 3 months. The chaotic hall was now in total silence. This woman again. A tinge of gloominess clouded Si Ming-li's eyes. When Si Ming-rong and the other elders saw that Yu Wanwan interrupted so suddenly at this point in time, their faces turned a little ugly. Si Han's pupils shifted slightly when she spoke up. He looked at her. Feng Yiping used the lid of his teacup to stroke the tea leaves and he sneered in a tone like he was speaking to some commoner, TSK, you object? Who are you to object? Yu Wanwan turned to Feng Yiping, expressionless. Director Feng seems to be as forgetful as his precious daughter. Does it run in the family? Feng Yiping wanted to lash out, but once he noticed Si Han from the corners of his eyes, he didn't dare to say another word. After all, this woman still had a status as the future mistress of the household. Yu Wanwan let Feng Yiping be. She stood up, ignored all the hateful and mocking stares and said, if an organ transplant can help Ajio live a proper life, I wouldn't have any objections. But a transplant wouldn't solve the root of the problem. At most, he'll live for another few years, but it's definitely not the best solution. Si Mingli scoffed, what does a little brat like you know, talking nonsense here? Dr. Sun already said the master only has 6 months to live. If he doesn't go for the operation, all he can do is wait for death. You actually objected to the operation at a time like this. What malicious intentions do you have? After Si Mingli was done talking, the other elders chimed in and supported him. Faced with everyone's criticism, Yu Wanwan's gaze wasn't at all fearful. Ajio's body can recuperate as long as he takes proper care of it and follows Dr. Sun's medication and acupuncture treatments. I took care of Ajio for half a month and his body has already shown signs of improvement. Dr. Sun can testify to this. Sun Bai Chao nodded. It has, indeed, but his recuperation rate can't keep up with 9th young master's deteriorating health, which is why I suggested the operation. Of course, if it's possible to nurse his health back to normal, that would be best. Then 9th master's life expectancy would be the same as any ordinary person's. When Yu Wanwan heard that, her clear eyes had a hint of menace as she swept her gaze across everyone present. So, please give me 3 months to continue to help Ajio recuperate. If Dr. Sun still concludes that Ajio needs the surgery, I have nothing to say. Yu Wanwan's words were immediately met with the objection of all the elders present. What a joke. Give you 3 months? Do you have any idea how much danger the master would be in for the next 3 months? I think if you're not ignorant and dumb then you're just trying to harm the master. Master has so many renowned doctors by his side, the great Dr. Sun's here as well. If his health can be nursed back, it would have been done much earlier. Who are you to criticize and give us orders? No way. Placing the master's life in the hands of an ignorant woman is just ridiculous. If something happens to the master during these 3 months, can she bear the responsibility? She really won't be able to. As the hall was in a ruckus, a frosty voice came from the main seat. The man's hoarse voice wasn't loud, but it shut everyone up instantly, and they all turned to look at Si-Han at the same time. Si-Han's face was slightly pale, but the hostility in his eyes was evident, enveloping the entire hall. After a brief moment of dead silence, Si-Han continued, "So, I will bear the responsibility." Chapter 494. If I die. Following what Si-Han said, after a few seconds of silence, there was a storm of protests in the hall. What Si-Han means is, he agrees with this woman and won't do the operation. In a moment, all the elders' faces changed drastically and they were extremely anxious. "Master, this can't be. You really shouldn't. This is too rash. How could you not trust in great Dr. Sun's words and believe this ignorant woman instead? Master, your health involves the rise and fall of our entire family clan. How could you act so carelessly?" Si Ming-rong's face became unusually dark. At first, he gave this woman some face on account of the master and old madam, tacitly allowing her to join the family clan's meeting, but this woman was a little too reckless. This matter concerned the master's family name. Si Ming-rong couldn't tolerate it any further as he used the cane to prop himself up. "Master, alas," before Si Ming-rong could speak, Si-Han's gaze interrupted him. "In 3 months, if the recuperation fails, we'll arrange for the surgery. If I die, die." Everyone turned to Si-Han, aghast. Si-Han's handsome face was indifferent as he continued, "All matters relating to the Si family shall proceed according to my will." Hearing the word, will, the old madam's face was overcome with sorrow. She wanted to speak but eventually kept silent. Although she wasn't pleased with Yi Wanwan taking things into her own hands, she was also quite moved by what she said. If little 9th's health could really recover and he could live a long and healthy life like other people, that would be ideal. How can I bear to let little 9th live with the pain of his illness and operations over the next few years? But if this fails, little 9th could lose his life any time. Yi Wanwan's heart trembled. Si-Han had even written his will already. Seeing that their master had made up his mind, there was definitely no chance of changing it. Everyone glared at Yi Wanwan like they wanted to slice her into 1,000 pieces. Feng Yiping stood up to leave. He shook his head and sighed in anguish. "I said this before, master will die in the hands of this woman someday. If the mistress of the household was Ruo Shi, things wouldn't be like this. Master insists on believing that woman, so nothing we say now will help." Seeing the elders' reactions, Si Mingli took great pleasure in them. TSK, dumb woman. She actually dared to object to all the elders' opinions and stop Si-Han from going for the operation. She's truly reckless. If something happens to Si-Han, she'll be the first to be blamed, then I won't have to get my hands dirty anymore. He didn't expect that a smart guy like Si-Han would end up falling into the hands of a woman. "It seems like our plan can be executed very soon. I really have to thank her for that." At the end of a deserted hallway, Su Changkun was worried. Miss Yu was too rash today. Su Yi's expression was grave as well. Ever since Miss Yi started helping 9th Master recuperate, 9th Master's body and condition have improved. If it wasn't for Miss Yi, 9th Master would be in a much worse state. Then is Miss Yi confident she can do this? Su Changkun probed anxiously. Su Yi shook his head, "I'm not sure either," but he felt she hadn't done that on a whim. Su Changkun was extremely concerned. What should we do?" Chapter 495, I'll give you whatever you want. That night, Si-Han had a high fever. It was initially just a slight cold, but it suddenly turned into a high fever, causing all the servants in Jean Garden to become terribly busy, and all the private doctors were on standby, afraid that something would happen to the master. Si Han's body was like a piece of brittle glass, any small illness could ignite an inextinguishable fire. On the large light gray bed in the bedroom, Si Han's breathing was rapid and his face was flushed. Yu Wanwan kept wringing an ice towel dry for him to lower his temperature and she wiped his body with alcohol. The moment she retracted her arm to put the towel down, he suddenly reached out and grabbed her wrist. Since he used too much force, a burst of pain came from Yu Wanwan's wrist and her bones were nearly shattered. Yu Wanwan furrowed her brows and she used her other hand to lightly pat his back. His furrowed brows relaxed a little, but he still held on and didn't let go of her wrist. Yu Wanwan sat at the bedside and stared at him on the bed with a complicated gaze. Having been by Si Han's side for so long, she thought she already knew this man inside out, yet sometimes she felt like she didn't really know him at all. Yu Wanwan's fingers touched his pale and thin lips then moved slowly down to his chest and she mumbled absent-mindedly, Si Han, why do you trust me? Yu Wanwan stared at his unbelievably handsome face. She smiled bitterly and sighed lightly. Aren't you afraid? I really want your life. Si Han frowned then opened his eyes slowly. His pair of deep, cold eyes seemed to be shrouded by a haze and when he looked at her, it was as if she was the only person in the world. I'll give you, whatever you want. Yu Wanwan felt like her heart was clasped tightly by a giant claw. She bit her lips and stared at the man who was obviously muddled by his fever. I don't want that sort of thing. You have to keep living, you're not allowed to die, do you hear me? His eyes slowly closed due to exhaustion. A whisper escaped from his lips, sure. Yu Wanwan clenched her fists. Liar, he agrees so easily each time, does he even take his promises seriously? The next morning. The storm had ceased and the air turned cold. When Yu Wanwan opened her eyes, she realized that she fell asleep unknowingly by Si Han's bedside. She was only wearing thin pajamas but surprisingly, she didn't feel cold at all. From the corners of her eyes, she saw what seemed to be a few strands of silvery white hairs on the carpet. Great White was here. At this moment, there were a few small movements by her side and Yu Wanwan quickly turned to the bed. Si Han twitched his fingers like he was about to wake up. Yu Wanwan hurriedly reached out to touch Si Han's forehead. After a few seconds, Yu Wanwan's grave expression became gentler. Thank goodness, the fever's gone. She had just let out a sigh when she was immediately met with a pair of light brown eyes, clear and cool like the sky after a rain. You're awake. Do you feel better? Yu Wanwan looked at the man in bed. Si Han didn't say a word and his eyes remained fixated on her like he hadn't completely woken up. Yu Wanwan stared at him. Do you remember what you promised me last night? What? Si Han asked in a hoarse voice. Yu Wanwan's face darkened instantly. I knew it, it was all a bunch of lies. Yu Wanwan was still mad when a coarse hand slowly caressed her face. I remember, I won't die. Chapter 496, Consult the Lady Boss. It was as if that endless darkness would swallow him whole. Only a tinge of warmth in his palm pushed him forward to keep going and not stop. Unsure of how much time had passed, he finally escaped from the darkness and saw a weak glow. The moment he opened his eyes, he saw the morning sun shining in, dancing on the girl's troubled little face. She asked him whether he still remembered what he promised her last night. How could I not? She said I have to keep living. At this moment, she raised her brows and looked quite surprised that he actually remembered. Her pair of sharp eyes was like the light of the whole world. A hint of craftiness flashed in Yu Wanwan's eyes as she moved closer and said softly, Then, do you remember all the other things you said? Si Han couldn't help himself and reached out to touch her eyelashes that were fluttering like a butterfly. What did I say? The girl revealed a sly expression. You said, you'll give me whatever I want. You were muddled by your fever last night and not only did you say that you'll give me whatever I want, you even said that, you love me so much that you can't free yourself and from now on, you'll listen to everything I say and obey me. Seeing that Si Han was staring at her in silence, Yu Wanwan raised her brows. What? You don't believe me? You think I'm lying to you? Yu Wanwan spoke with such a righteous tone, but the truth was that only one phrase was real. Si Han's eyes looked as if a light breeze was blowing on the surface of a lake and forming small ripples as he said softly, "No, that does sound like what I would say." When Yu Wanwan heard that, she was dumbfounded. Huh? Sounds like what he would say. Instinctively, she reached out to touch Si Han's forehead once again and thought he really was muddled by the fever. I tricked him on purpose, yet he can't even tell. And even said that these mushy words sound like something he would say. Not tricking him would be a waste. Yu Wanwan thought to herself, so she continued, "Cough, then you must remember your promise and keep your word." Then, there was a knock on the door. Su-yi stood by the door. "Ninth Master, Miss Wanwan, housekeeper Su, is anything the matter?" Yu Wanwan asked. Su-yi looked at his master on the bed worriedly. "Miss Wanwan, Ninth Master's health, the fever has subsided," Yu Wanwan replied. Su-yi heaved a sigh of relief, but after that, he looked like he was in a difficult position and was holding his words back. After pondering for some time, he decided to say it anyway. "Director Xue and Miss Ruo, she have been waiting outside for a long time. There's an important document from Shin City that requires Ninth Master's signature." Hearing what Su-yi said, Yu Wanwan's expression, which had just become gentler, turned icy in an instant. Su-yi obviously knew about Si Han's current condition, but he had an obligation to report this and couldn't possibly hide it, so he had summoned all his courage to come over. Su-yi turned to Si Han, waiting for instructions. "Ninth Master, please see if..." Si Han slowly sat up, leaned against the headboard, and his eyes paused on Yu Wanwan's little icy face. Then he turned to Su-yi and said casually, "Don't have to consult me." This, Su-yi was slightly stunned. "If I don't consult him, who should I consult?" Yu Wanwan's face was rigid and she said expressionlessly, "Consult me." Su-yi, ah. Chapter 497, I'll take over. Yu Wanwan stood upright after she finished speaking and walked towards the door. When she was halfway out the door, she turned and stared at the man on the bed, still worried. "It's still early, go back to sleep." Si Han's tone had a subtle smile in it. Su-yi stood in a daze for a long time before coming to his senses, and he jogged to keep up with Yu Wanwan. Behind them, the man looked at the retreating figure of the girl with a hint of tenderness he hadn't felt before. Not long after Yu Wanwan left, there were sounds of extremely light paw prints stepping on the floor. A silvery white figure strode over to the front of the man's bed silently, then it laid down on the blanket by his bedside meekly. Si Han looked at the white tiger by his bed, and the tenderness in his eyes turned cold. "Slaughter, if I don't make it." Si Han lowered his eyes, clutched his chest and coughed lightly, then reached out to stroke the white tiger's fur. "If one day I'm no longer around, be nicer to her." Slaughter whipped its tail in annoyance and let out a low roar like he was upset and offended. Downstairs. Sure enough, Qin Ruoshi and a middle-aged man were waiting at the same spot, and they both looked very anxious. A pair of footsteps came from upstairs and both of them turned to look. In the end, they saw that the person coming down wasn't Si Han but Yu Wanwan instead. Su-yi followed behind her. Yu Wanwan walked straight to the sofa in the living room, sat down and said to the two people, "Please take a seat." The person in charge of the subsidiary company, Shueli, was taken aback, and he looked at Qin Ruoshi, then asked instinctively, "Where's Ninth Master?" "Yu Wanwan, you can just tell me directly if there's anything you need to discuss with him." When Qin Ruoshi heard that, her eyes flashed. Shueli frowned and said, "There are a couple urgent documents from the subsidiary company in Shin City that require Ninth Master's verification and signature." Yu Wanwan nodded. "Got it, hand them over to me." Shueli's face turned slightly ugly and he said sternly, "These contracts are extremely important and they're also classified. They can't simply be handed over to anyone and must only be in Ninth Master's hands." Yu Wanwan was unruffled and she shuffled in her position as she replied without a change in expression, "From now on, I'll take over all these matters." "What? She'll take over?" "Director Qin, this, Shueli instinctively turned to Qin Ruoxi, seeking her opinion. Qin Ruoxi's calm face finally changed a little. Miss Yi, this is a really crucial matter. It's better if we consult CEOC once he's awake. TSK, she's finally starting to panic, huh? It was only when Yi Wanwan came into conflict with her interests that Qin Ruoxi realized her power. Yi Wanwan smiled sarcastically at Qin Ruoxi. Sorry, Miss Qin, nothing is more crucial to me than my boyfriend's health. Yi Wanwan's tone was arrogant and wasn't apprehensive at all. After all, even if Qin Ruoxi complained to the elders and old madam, her actions were justified. Qin Ruoxi also knew that as long as Yi Wanwan used the excuse of Si Han's health, she couldn't do anything to her. Qin Ruoxi replied diplomatically, we obviously care about CEOC's health as well. If it wasn't something urgent, we wouldn't disturb him either. But these documents require CEOC's signature before noon today, and this was also arranged by CEOC himself a month ago, so I hope Miss Yi will allow Ninth Master to verify this. Chapter 498, Vying. The middle-aged man couldn't hold it in anymore. Since when did we have to deal with an outsider's attitude when we're here to report about work? Miss, I don't think you have the authority to stop us from seeing Ninth Master. At this moment, Su Yi coughed lightly and explained, Director Shui, Miss Ruoxi, it was Ninth Master himself who allowed Miss Wanwan to deal with this matter. If there's anything the two of you need to report, please tell it directly to Miss Wanwan. She will pass the documents over to Ninth Master. Shui Li's words were immediately cut off by Su Yi, and Qin Ruoxi went quiet as well. Yi Wanwan yawned lazily and looked somewhat impatient. Do you still have a problem? Qin Ruoxi's expression kept changing. After a long while, she finally said, since it's what CEOC wants, we'll hand the documents over to Miss Yi. CEOC's still recuperating, he really shouldn't exert himself. Shueli got anxious when he heard her. How could we do this? How could we let an outsider handle such an important task? Qin Ruoxi glanced at Yi Wanwan. Miss Wanwan is the future mistress, how is she an outsider? What future mistress? She's obviously a vixen who uses her looks to get what she wants. Shueli didn't dare to say the rest of his sentence out loud and could only pass the documents over to Yi Wanwan unwillingly. Walking out of the big gate, Shueli still had a stomach full of anger. Director Qin, do we really have to let this woman meddle with such an important matter? With Ninth Master's condition like this, he can't be thinking clearly at all. If that woman did something behind Ninth Master's back, the consequences will be unthinkable. Qin Ruoxi furrowed her brows. Since she's someone Audiobook trusts, she probably wouldn't, Shueli snapped, as if she wouldn't. Director Qin, you think too nicely of people. That woman used the excuse of nursing Ninth Master's health to cling by his side. She's even meddling with the company's affairs now. Even Su Yi's been taken in by her, she obviously has some ulterior motive here. She better not harm Ninth Master or bring the company down too. Qin Ruoxi pinched the space between her brows. But right now, she's the most trusted person at Audio's side, even I can't get involved. Furthermore, I'm in an awkward position. Shueli expressed some understanding in the matter. Qin Ruoxi had always been rumored to be the most suitable candidate as the future mistress of the household, and if she stepped forward to oppose Yi Wanwan right now, she would be misunderstood as vying for the position of future mistress. What most trusted person? CEOC's most trusted person shouldn't be this lover of his. I think CEOC's confused due to his illness. Director Qin, since you can't get involved, I'll do it. I'm going to the head office right now to see all the board members. I won't let this issue rest just like this. Shueli straightened his lapel after speaking and strode off. Watching Shueli storm away, the drama of the situation slowly faded away. Miss Ruoxi. Suddenly, a teenager's voice came from behind her. Seeing the person coming towards her, Qin Ruoxi forced a slow smile on her face. Lu Ying, you're back. Lu Ying clenched his fists. Is it true? What? Master, his health. Chin Ruashi's expression turned gloomy. Yes, during the family clan meeting yesterday, Ajo and the old madam announced it personally. How could it be? Luing was in disbelief. He knew Master's health hadn't been great all along, but he didn't know it was that serious. Chapter 499, How did you feed me previously? Chin Ruashi sighed. Miss Yi only did it for Ajo's health. Seeing how tired and helpless Chin Ruashi was, the fury in Lu Ying's chest rose instantly. For Master's health. Miss Ruashi, I already heard about it and also heard the entire conversation just now. Master has to go for the operation as soon as possible within 3 months. Otherwise, his life might be in danger. But that woman insisted on stopping him, so she's obviously trying to harm him. Chin Ruashi tried to calm him down. Maybe Miss Yi could really nurse Ajo's health back. That would be great. Luing was so mad that he started laughing and he spoke with a darkened expression. TSK, nurse his health back. Miss Ruashi, do you even know why Master's health is in this state today? It's all thanks to that woman's provocations. She really wants Master dead, so how could she help Master recover? Even if she has no ulterior motives, what abilities does she have that she could do something even renowned doctors can't? Now she's even interfering with the company's internal affairs. What right does she have? In the living room, after Chin Ruashi and Shueli left, Yi Wanwan took the documents upstairs. She pushed the bedroom door open and sure enough, Si Han was lying in bed obediently. Yi Wanwan's expression became gentler and she pulled a chair to his bedside. As she was about to sit down, Si Han, whose gaze remained fixed on her, said slowly, "Sit by my side." When Yi Wanwan heard that, her heart trembled slightly and she turned to look at him. Am I not sitting right next to you? I even dragged the chair over. But from Si Han's tone, he was obviously referring to the bed. I can't fall asleep, Si Han said. Yi Wanwan couldn't refute that, so she lifted the blanket and sat next to Si Han. Are you happy now? Yi Wanwan asked. Si Han, it's better if you lie down. Yi Wanwan was speechless. No, I have to finish reading these documents then clean them up a little. You should sleep a little longer. I should be done with them by the time you wake up, then I'll summarize them and read them out for you later, Yi Wanwan said assertively, leaving no room for objection. Seeing her serious little face, Si Han was somewhat helpless. Wait, take your medicine first. Although the fever's gone, you haven't fully recovered from your cold yet, don't let it become worse again. Yi Wanwan got up immediately and poured a couple pills out as if she had done it many times before. Yi Wanwan took the pills, poured a cup of water and walked back to the bed. However, Si Han kept looking at her, not moving an inch. What's the matter now? Yi Wanwan furrowed her brows. Si Han's eyes shifted and he asked all of a sudden, how did you feed me when I was unconscious before? Yi Wanwan was stunned at first, then her cheeks started to burn slightly. She pushed the cup of water over. I shoved it in, all right. Why am I finding that this guy is becoming harder to deal with? Where's the aloof man I used to know? I used my mouth to feed him before due to the situation at that time, okay? Yi Wanwan leaned against the headboard after she finally fed Si Han his pills and coaxed him to sleep. She stared at the classified documents in her hands. Si Han didn't hide any confidential information from her anyway, but if she opened these herself, there would be a totally different meaning to it now. Yi Wanwan sat there for a long while. In the end, she looked at the documents slowly. Chapter 500, I know very well what I'm doing before. I always thought Si Han didn't put his guard up around me because he viewed me as an unimportant plaything, but who would allow a plaything to meddle with such important matters? Thinking about it carefully, Si Han deliberately allowed me to meddle in the company's affairs in the past life several times, probably to increase my influence and carve a path for my future, but I thought he was making life difficult for me, so I messed things up and caused more resentment instead. Downstairs, Su Yi was briefing the servants on some issues when Luing stomped in. Sui saw him and greeted him, Luing, you're back. Lu Ying's face was rigid as he replied, Sui, come here for a while. Noticing that Luing didn't look too good, Sui anticipated a storm brewing as he dismissed the servants and followed Luing into the courtyard. The two of them walked in single file to a corner in the courtyard where there was no one around. Sui had just stopped in his tracks when Luing turned around swiftly and threw a punch at Sui's face. The punch landed so quickly and Sui was completely caught off guard, his face was smashed by the fist and his head started to buzz. Luing looked as if his entire being was set ablaze by fury. Sui. Not only did you forget who you are, but you even forgot who your master is, huh? Sui took a very long time before he returned to his senses from the dizziness. He stood up and looked firmly into the eyes of the teenager. What are you trying to say? Luing sneered, what am I saying? I'm referring to the way you kneel and suck up to that woman. Sui responded without any expression, Luing, be careful of your words. Don't forget that Miss Wanwan saved Master's life before, she saved all of us, including yourself. Luing scoffed. So that's your reason? If it wasn't for that incident, do you think I would tolerate everything up till now? I didn't want things to be this way, but she actually stopped Master from going for that operation. Do you know Master will be killed by her? Furthermore, she just received a tip from that mole before, how can you give her all the credit? Who is she to interfere with the company's affairs? Who is she to order us around and even humiliate Miss Ruoshi? Sui remained silent after listening to Luing. Those things Yi Wanwan did weren't informed by the mole at all, the mole was long dead. If it wasn't for Yi Wanwan, all of them would have died. Although Sui didn't know why Yi Wanwan would know those things, he believed she didn't have any malicious intentions towards the master. But he couldn't tell Luing all this, Lu Ying's bias against Yi Wanwan was too strong. If he found out Yi Wanwan had no explanation for knowing so much, it would probably bring up more problems. Seeing that Sui was keeping silent, Lu Ying's gaze turned icier. What? Don't have anything to say? You've been completely bribed and blinded by that woman. Sui stared at Luing resolutely and mouthed each word clearly, Luing, the 3 months time frame is not up yet and before there is an outcome, we can't simply arrive at a conclusion. Also, Miss Wanwan is not what you see on the surface, she's not just a dumb and weak princess, on the contrary, she's brave, smart and calm. Even if some insider information was tipped off by the mole, ask yourself honestly, as a woman, she was able to successfully deceive the brutal and vicious murderous blood gang while remaining calm and composed in that sort of situation. Do you really think that was pure luck? Luing, you're always judging her based on your emotions and you've lost your objectivity. I don't want to debate with you right now. Sui said his piece then wiped the blood on his mouth with the back of his hand. Also, I know very well what I'm doing. Chapter 501, Is it that hard to say something sweet? Yi Wanwan finally finished reading all the documents. With so much complicated data and information, she would have collapsed if not for her powerful memory. At this moment, she heard a deep hoarse voice, was it fun to read? Yi Wanwan immediately turned and looked at the man who had just woken up. What do you think? I really have no idea how you read these documents to the point where you neglected sleep and forgot about eating. I've only read them for a day and I feel like puking already. Hurry, come over, let me take a look at your face to refresh my eyes. Si Han chuckled. His smile was like flower petals drifting out of those deep eyes. Seeing his smile, Yi Wanwan was dumbstruck. Damn! That should be illegal. This is my very first time seeing the great devil smiling so gently. The effect of this eyewash is amazing. Yi Wanwan heaved a quiet sigh of relief when she saw his rare smile. Do you feel more energized now? Si Han, N. Yi Wanwan leaned over, planted a kiss on his face and smiled sweetly. Don't you feel much better now? Batteries recharged. Get up and have a bite first, I'll give you a report when you're done. After Si Han washed up, Yu Wanwan asked the kitchen to bring some breakfast over, and when they were done with breakfast, she started helping him deal with some work. In the study, Si Han leaned against the sofa silently and Yu Wanwan sat opposite. The fresh scent of grass, after a rain, wafted in through the window and entwined with the girl's soothing voice. Everything she was reading was extremely troublesome and obscure business affairs mired in minor details that caused one to be frustrated, yet he didn't feel stifled at all. Instead, he wished that she would continue reading like that. In the blink of an eye, a day went by. Si Han rested and worked at the same time and managed to deal with all the documents. At night, Yu Wanwan sat in front of the dresser after a shower. Looking at herself in the mirror, Yu Wanwan was a little doubtful. With her abilities, there wasn't much she could accomplish now. At most, she could give a summary report and help him send some emails, but he still had to make the final decision. Through the mirror, Yu Wanwan shot a glance at Si Han, who was sitting on the sofa behind her, and couldn't help but ask, "That, Si Han, I suddenly realized that, you're still the one who has to use your brain power. Is it any help that I merely tidy up the documents and read them to you?" Even though Si Han's face was still slightly pale, he was in pretty good spirits. After he heard her question, he placed the bowl of medicine down, glanced at the girl, then replied plainly, "Logically speaking, it's not of much use." When Yu Wanwan heard that, her head drooped instantly. "Oh, then didn't I just do something worthless?" Si Han then replied casually, "I didn't say this has to be logical." Yu Wanwan turned around, confused, "Ah. What do you mean?" Si Han, the literal meaning. Yu Wanwan, so what are you trying to say exactly? I still don't get it. Si Han, find out yourself. Yu Wanwan, what the hell, find out myself. Yu Wanwan racked her brain and it circled more than 10 rounds. After a very long time, she finally got it. She looked at the cold and dashing man with a darkened expression. "Why can't you just say that because the person reading the documents and accompanying you to deal with work is your darling cutie, so you feel extremely blessed, entirely free from worries and very productive, huh? Why must you beat around the bush? Is it that hard to say something sweet?" Yu Wanwan complained, rather displeased. Chapter 502, You Teach Me. Si Han looked at the girl's upset little expression and said, "You teach me." Yu Wanwan felt speechless and replied, "I think, you're probably unteachable, you have no potential." Yu Wanwan obviously didn't dare to speak the truth and said with utter seriousness, I think you don't have to learn, all you have to do is rely on your looks." When Si Han heard that, he raised his brows. Clearly, this wasn't what she intended to say. Yu Wanwan hopped over, sat next to Si Han and looked at him with her hand supporting her head. "Why don't you teach me instead? Teach me how to deal with all these matters so when I'm good at it, I can help share your burden." Hearing this, Si Han's expression became serious. "You want to learn?" Yu Wanwan furrowed her brows slightly. "Actually, I'm not too sure either." Probably sensing Yu Wanwan's hesitation, Si Han looked deep into her eyes. "Let me know when you've made up your mind." Yu Wanwan replied, "No need, I've already decided." She knew what this decision entailed, but from the moment she chose to intervene during the trip to Country B, many things were no longer up to her anymore. Yu Wanwan was in a daze when her phone started ringing. It was Jiang Yanran. When Yu Wanwan saw that it was from Jiang Yanran, she suddenly recalled that the summer holiday was almost over and time had gone by in a flash. As she had been really busy during the summer break, she didn't have much time to keep in touch with Jiang Yanran and the others. Jiang Yanran was a very good seedling, although she promised Yu Wanwan she would ask her to be her manager if she entered the entertainment industry. After they got along so well, Jiang Yanran now felt like more than just a future partner to her, she was a friend. No matter what her choice was in the future, Yu Wanwan wouldn't force her. "It's Jiang Yanran calling." Yu Wanwan informed Si Han, then answered the call. "Hello, Yanran." "Wanwan, I was about to call you myself to ask if you wanted to go to school together in a few days' time," Yu Wanwan said. "Sure. We'll go together then. Yu Wanwan was about to continue speaking, but she was very sharp and noticed something off with Jiang Yanran's voice. What's the matter? Why do you sound so down? Jiang Yanran hesitated to speak. Yu Wanwan knitted her brows when she heard some vague noises and music in Jiang Yanran's background. Why is it so noisy on your end? Where are you? Jiang Yanran ignored her question. She remained silent for a while before slowly speaking. Wanwan, I might be breaking up. Yu Wanwan was stunned. What did you say? Why so suddenly? Seeing that Yu Wanwan had a sudden change in expression, Si Han cast a sideways glance at her. Why were you breaking up all of a sudden? What happened with Chu Feng? Yu Wanwan asked anxiously. There was silence at the other end for some time before Jiang Yanran's voice was heard. Lately, when he was going out with me, he was seeing another girl at the same time. What did you say? How is that possible? Yu Wanwan was in shock, like she just heard the most unbelievable thing. Even if you gave Chu Feng 100 guts, he would never dare to do such a thing. Yanran, could it be that you were mistaken? Yu Wanwan hurriedly asked. Jiang Yanran laughed bitterly. Mistaken? I noticed something was off with him, but I didn't think much about it until one day when I saw him shopping with that girl with my own eyes. I stood outside the shop and called him, but he lied and told me he was at home. Chapter 503, Walk into it one more time for me to see if there was nothing fishy going on. Why would he lie? But she still thought there must be some misunderstanding to this issue. In my past life, Chu Feng was so devoted to Jiang Yanran. How could he do something like this? The music from the other end became more deafening and Yu Wanwan frowned. Where are you right now? Scarlet Bar. Jiang Yanran sounded a little intoxicated. When she heard Jiang Yanran was at a bar and realized that she sounded drunk, Yu Wanwan knitted her brows. It's too dangerous for Jiang Yanran to be alone at a bar in this condition. Got it, I'll be there right away. Yu Wanwan hung up after speaking. Before she said anything, Si Han's voice traveled into her ears. Let Sui take you. Yu Wanwan nodded and kissed Si Han on the cheek. I'll go check what's going on, I'll be back very soon. She wasn't sure when she and Si Han started to chat so naturally, but she was also no longer afraid that he would be mad when she saw her friends or talked to them. And these changes happened in just a few short months. Yu Wanwan rushed downstairs. When she was downstairs, she saw Sui speaking to a servant in the living room. Yu Wanwan was about to call out to him, but Sui started hiding the second he saw her and rushed towards the kitchen instantly. Yu Wanwan frowned with a suspicious gaze, then called out to him to stop him. Housekeeper Su. Suyi's back stiffened. He didn't have a choice but to turn around slowly and lower his head, hoping to hide the injuries on his face. Miss Wanwan, how can I help you? What happened to your face? Yu Wanwan asked sternly. Nothing, I walked into the door, Sui replied. Yu Wanwan crossed her arms and laughed. You walked into the door and your face turned like that? Why don't you walk into it one more time for me to see? At this moment, half of Suyi's face was swollen. He had a bruise around his eye and it was bloodshot, he could barely even open it. Cough, Sui had nothing to say. Was it Luing? Yu Wanwan asked. Sui quickly said, it's really nothing, Miss Wanwan, by the way, what can I do for you? Sui attempted to change the topic. Yu Wanwan's face turned gloomy. Forget it, get Luing and make him drive me to a place. Sui replied instantly, where would you like to go? I'll drive you. How are you going to drive when you're injured like that? Go get him. There was a hint of fury in Yu Wanwan's voice. Seeing that Yu Wanwan was angry, Sui didn't have a choice but to get someone to call Luing over right away. Standing before him was just a petite young lady, yet when she got really angry, she could make him feel the chills. There was an aura around her that was very similar to Si Han's. Very soon, Luing was called over and he was annoyed the second he saw Yu Wanwan. What's the matter? Yu Wanwan cast a sideways glance at him coldly. Get the car ready and drive me to Scarlet Bar. What? Hearing Yu Wanwan ordering him around with such a tone, Lu Ying's face turned rigid. Before anger could appear on Lu Ying's face, Yu Wanwan already stood up, not allowing any room for objections. She glanced at the time on her phone. I'm in a rush. Lu Ying balled his hands, looked at Su Yi and finally, gritted his teeth and followed Yu Wanwan. Chapter 504, Meeting a Guy or a Girl. Song Jing took a glimpse at the back through the rearview mirror, then said softly, Captain, don't be angry anymore. Boss likes her, what can we do? Shut up. Lu Ying was obviously in a bad mood. He actually had to escort this woman, a total insult to him. Oh, Song Jing stopped talking. The car drove for some time and Song Jing spoke up again as he hated the silence. Captain, though I find Goddess Ruashi the most qualified to be the mistress of the household, Yu Wanwan isn't as bad as you think, right? Forgetting about appearances, isn't it normal for girls to be a little whiny? This isn't a big deal. Also, for the trip to Country B, even though the mole gave her the information, she managed to act it out so realistically, it's a skill as well. Even our own people were fooled by her. Thankfully Yu Wanwan was there to save him that time. Song Jing still felt quite grateful towards her. If she hadn't appeared and revealed Eugene's weaknesses, he would be dead by now. Lu Ying sneered and spoke loudly, allowing Yu Wanwan to hear him on purpose. TSK, great acting skills. Why doesn't she be an actress then? In the back seat, Yu Wanwan thought about Jiang Yanran and Chu Feng and ignored Lu Ying's mockery. Half an hour later, the car finally stopped at the entrance of Scarlet Bar. Yu Wanwan immediately got out of the car and walked briskly into the bar. Why's Missy going to a bar at this hour? Is she meeting a guy or a girl? Song Jing mumbled as he parked the car. Lu Ying crossed his arms and acted like he didn't care. At the bar, the lights were dazzling and the music was deafening. Yu Wanwan squeezed through the crowd and finally found Jiang Yanran lying in one of the booths. Yanran. Yu Wanwan heaved a sigh of relief when she finally found her. Jiang Yanran raised her head slowly when she heard the familiar voice and looked at her in a daze. The moment she realized who that person was, her eyes turned red and she smiled. Wanwan, you're here. Seeing the girl forcing a smile, Yu Wanwan furrowed her brows and walked up to her. Yu Wanwan didn't say a word. She hugged her gently and patted her back. The tears Jiang Yanran had been holding back came streaming down as her body jerked lightly. Currently, Song Jing and Lu Ying were sitting in a nearby booth as well. So it's a woman, no wonder, Song Jing mumbled. When Jiang Yanran calmed down a little, Yu Wanwan asked, what happened? Jiang Yanran held her forehead. It's just as I said, Yu Wanwan. Are you sure that the woman isn't Chu Feng's relative? Maybe a cousin or something? Jiang Yanran shook her head. I checked, she isn't. Do you have a picture of that woman? Yu Wanwan tried to probe further. Jiang Yanran picked her phone up. I secretly took one when I saw them that day. She pulled up a picture from her photo album. Yu Wanwan quickly took Jiang Yanran's phone and saw that there was a shopping center in the background. A young girl was shopping while Chu Feng was following behind with many shopping bags in his hands. Chapter 505, Amputate his third leg. However, what caught Yu Wanwan's attention was that she found this woman somewhat familiar. Yu Wanwan enlarged the photo to take a closer look and increasingly felt like she had seen this woman somewhere, and it seemed quite recent. Weird, who could it be? Yu Wanwan was deep in thought. From the photo, this woman looks like she's in her 20s, definitely older than Chu Feng. She doesn't look like the type Chu Feng likes, right? Who knows? Jiang Yanran's face was pale as she mumbled and downed her glass. Song Ziheng already left a deep wound on Jiang Yanran. If Chu Feng truly went behind her back. Also, I was the one who brought Chu Feng and Jiang Yanran together. Darn it. This Chu Feng, I helped him so much, and if he really dared to cheat, I'll amputate his third leg. 1. Jiang Yanran filled their glasses to the brim. Have a drink with me? Yi Wanwan frowned. Yanran, stop drinking. We can't jump to a conclusion without figuring out exactly what's going on. We'll find a chance to ask him out and talk about it. Jiang Yanran closed her eyes. But... Wanwan. I don't want to. I don't want to talk about it, Yi Wanwan sighed softly. She knew it wasn't that Jiang Yanran didn't want to talk about it, it was more that she didn't dare. Oh, an ear-piercing howl resounded in the bar. In the middle of the stage, there was a stripper and her performance was very provocative, not fit to be seen. Not far off, Song Jing couldn't get his eyes off her. I didn't expect that I would have such benefits just from making this trip. Lu Ying's face was gloomy. Staring at Yi Wanwan speaking to Jiang Yanran, his face turned even nastier. A girl coming to a place like this at this hour? She's just dirty and corrupted. At the messy bar, Yi Wanwan was wearing a white blouse paired with jeans. She looked very out of place. She was dressed so ordinarily and didn't even have any makeup on, but her clear eyes and attractive looks with skin as white as snow was like a huge source of light, attracting tons of attention the moment she stepped into the bar. At this moment, in the VIP glass booth upstairs, damn. Young Master Chen, a premium good just walked in. Someone stared in a specific direction without blinking. The wealthy prince holding a drink next to him stepped over. You're so damn noisy. What premium good? There, over there, the prince looked in the direction of Jiang Yanran and wasn't impressed. Isn't she just a lonely, dejected and drunk girl? Haven't you seen a woman before? That girl didn't look too shabby, but he already tried countless beauties in Imperial City, so he was sick of girls looking like this. The lackey next to him exclaimed, No. Not her. It's the one beside the one in red, that chick in the white blouse. Next to her. The prince moved his gaze a few inches and saw the woman sitting across the girl in red. After he saw the girl clearly, the prince's hand holding the drink paused in midair and his eyes couldn't move away. Damn! A premium good indeed. Didn't expect that I could see such a rare beauty in scarlet. Downstairs, Yi Wanwan was trying to help Jiang Yanran up. Yanran, be good and stop drinking. It's getting late, so let's head back home first. I'll go with you to meet Chu Feng another day. Alright. Jiang Yanran was completely drunk now, so Yi Wanwan had to use all her strength and finally managed to help her up. Chapter 506. Not fully qualified. She was very certain she had seen that girl somewhere before, but she just couldn't recall at this moment. I'll think about it when I get back. Yi Wanwan supported Jiang Yanran while in deep thought, and when she passed the bar counter, she was suddenly blocked by a few people. Yi Wanwan didn't pay them any mind and turned in another direction. However, the moment she turned, the other side was blocked as well. This repeated a couple of times and Yi Wanwan naturally realized that something was wrong. Are they doing this on purpose? Yi Wanwan lifted her head and looked at the people blocking her way. Standing in front was a smartly dressed guy in custom-made Armani from head to toe. He looked shameless, his tipsy eyes were murky and listless, and he was looking at her with the gaze of a hunter. Behind him were a few stocky men in black. Judging from their build and disposition, they didn't look like ordinary bodyguards but bodyguards of wealthy families who had undergone stringent training. TSK, beautiful, truly beautiful, the prince was enchanted. His stare was like a revolting serpent, sticking its tongue out and licking a person's skin, making Yi Wanwan feel disgusted. The man next to the prince looked vile, his mouth stuck out and he had an ape's chin. He was dressed in a black muscle tank and had blonde hair. He rubbed his hands gleefully when he told the prince, Told you. Young master, how could I possibly lie to you, huh? After the blonde spoke, he looked at Yi Wanwan like a hungry wolf. Beauty, our young Master Chen wants to buy you a drink. This way, please. Yu Wanwan scanned these people expressionlessly. Sorry, I'm not interested. Seeing that she actually dared to reject them, the blonde was taken aback. Do you know who my young master is? This was his young master's turf. People who came here never rejected young Master Chen unless they were blind and didn't know who he was. Yi Wanwan's face was still expressionless. Am I supposed to know? Yi Wanwan's indifferent tone immediately angered the blondie. My young master is the son of the owner of Xianda International, the boss of this Scarlet Bar. So don't embarrass yourself here. Not far off, Song Jing noticed something was wrong and he hurriedly said, Captain, someone's making trouble for Miss Yi. Attracting bees and butterflies. Lu Ying sneered. Cough, Captain, we better head over quickly, otherwise, things might get out of hand. Song Jing was anxious. Lu Ying's eyes shifted slightly and he gave Song Jing side eye. Why are you panicking? That woman's so capable as the future mistress of the Sea household. Do you have to be so anxious about such a small issue? Song Jing rubbed his nose, slightly uneasy. He felt like he was in a difficult position. But, she's still a girl, and the one making trouble is that good-for-nothing from the Qin family, Qin Shijie. He always uses his father's power to tyrannize others. He's a well-known terror who's played so many women. Getting involved with a person like him, I'm afraid Yu Wanwan will be at a loss. Lu Ying's eyes were frosty. So you know that too. Let me tell you, without Master or the Sea family, this woman is nothing. She can be a lover, but she's not qualified to be the mistress of the household. Seeing Lu Ying's dark expression, Song Jing kept quiet and didn't dare to talk back. From a certain perspective, the captain was right. A woman like Yu Wanwan was really not fully qualified to be the mistress of the household. Chapter 507, Grab her. Although that was what he thought, Yu Wanwan was still a defenseless, weak girl, which was why she brought them along. They couldn't possibly expect her to put on a pair of wings and fly out in a situation like this, right? Just as Lu Ying and Song Jing observed from the sidelines, Yu Wanwan was surrounded by a group of people. Others at the bar were used to this situation already and none of them dared to intervene. Instead, they all hid far away. This was Qin Shijie's territory. Obviously, nobody dared to do anything. The blonde spat out arrogantly, Babe, don't make things difficult for yourself. Follow us obediently and have some fun with our young Master Chen for a couple days. Otherwise, Algue, don't be so rough with a beauty. Qin Shijie stared at Yu Wanwan without blinking at all, totally entranced by her. When his eyes swept past Jiang Yanran, who was next to Yu Wanwan, he brightened up instantly. He didn't think much of her before as they were too far away, but now that he was closer, this girl in red was quite attractive too. If I can get them both, hee. Today's my lucky day. Qin Shijie held a glass of whiskey in his hand as he leaned closer clumsily. This beauty isn't bad either. Why don't both of you accompany me, huh? I love threesomes. All the lackeys around them burst out in laughter when they heard that. Ha 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 ha, young Master Chen's going to have so much fun tonight. Why aren't you thanking young Master Chen? Tonight, both of you sisters have a chance to get on young Master Chen's bed. Hearing those people's filthy and crude remarks, Yu Wanwan's eyes turned ice cold and she took a step back, protecting Jiang Yanran. She glanced behind her as she didn't want to get in trouble with these people. Lu Ying and Song Jing were nearby. In the end, when she turned her head to look for them, she met Lu Ying's mocking gaze and Song Jing avoided her gaze on purpose after already having seen her. He looked down, not daring to say a word. The two of them clearly knew her situation, yet they remained in place without any intention of helping. She didn't have to guess to know that Lu Ying was doing this deliberately. When Yu Wanwan saw this, a tinge of coldness appeared on her lips. TSK, I really underestimated Qin Ruoxi's ability to capture people's hearts. Didn't you hear what young Master Chen said? Bring these two this way. Young Master Chen would like to enjoy himself tonight. Make it quick. Yes. After they heard the blondie's orders, two big men immediately stepped forward at the same time and grabbed Yi Wanwan, and Jiang Yan ran with their big, strong hands. After that, Chen Shijie slowly strolled to Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan glared at Chen Shijie as he got closer to her. She kicked him in the stomach and elbowed him to release. Jiang Yan ran from his grip. Chen Shijie didn't see this coming at all. He hadn't expected Yi Wanwan actually knew a move or two. He rubbed his stomach and his tipsy eyes were overcast. Wow, that's hot. Not bad. I like that. Seeing as Yi Wanwan wasn't easy to deal with, she even hit Chen Shijie. Two others appeared in an instant. Yi Wanwan had to protect. Jiang Yan ran and deal with four men at the same time, and she started to feel a little overwhelmed. Although she had quick reaction times for various types of martial arts, she hated learning how to fight and kill. When her father hired a professional to coach her, she slacked off whenever she could. Dealing with ordinary people was fine, but these were obviously highly trained bodyguards equipped with proper skills. Each one of them could take down 10 men at once, not to mention a woman like her. Chapter 508, Force alcohol down her throat. Chen Shijie and his group of lackeys just stood there watching and giggling as she resisted. After some time, Chen Shijie lost his patience and his eyes gradually turned malicious. Hee, she has quite a temper, huh? Don't want to leave with young master, right? Fine. I will just deal with you here. Chen Shijie was fearless when he started playing. He had done things like this in public several times before and even held a party performing sickening acts on women in front of everyone. He would really do it and found great pleasure in it. His lackeys started howling like wolves once again after he said that. Most of the people in the pub were also watching the commotion and started howling along as if the issue wasn't serious enough. In the crowd, there were countless pairs of lecherous eyes and drunk and lustful faces filled with desire, eagerly awaiting this visual feast. Occasionally, there were some who couldn't stand it, but they didn't dare to say anything. Each person hid far away. Chen Shijie's group of thugs were all highly paid experts, who would dare to stir up trouble with them. Chen Shijie held his glass elegantly and got the lackey next to him to top up his glass as he sneered, "Grab hold of her." Suddenly, the remaining guards around her pounced over like wolves and tigers. Jiang Yan ran, who was drunk and unconscious, was thrown aside by two huge bodyguards while the rest grabbed hold of Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan couldn't move an inch. She glared at them, her eyes increasingly glacial. The dreadful iciness in her eyes inexplicably made Chen Shijie shiver, but he was quickly overcome by his lustful desires as he leaned over to her with an evil smile and ordered his lackey, "Force alcohol down her throat." I've seen many women like her who look innocent on the surface. Her true nature will be revealed after a few drinks. Lustier than anybody. Yes. The blondie immediately ran over, took a bottle of whiskey and started to force the alcohol down her throat. Cough cough. Yi Wanwan felt as if her throat was on fire as the hard liquor was forced into her mouth. Ha 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 ha, drink more. Chen Shijie kept making Yi Wanwan drink non-stop and very soon, the bottom of the bottle could be seen. Chen Shijie admired her for a long while. Finally, with a crash, Chen Shijie flung aside the glass in his hand and he walked towards the girl slowly, ready to have a taste of this feast. Song Jing couldn't take it anymore after seeing this scene. "Captain, are we really not going to do anything?" As expected, Luing remained still without any intention of doing anything. Obviously, he wouldn't really let anything happen. But this woman had to be taught a lesson today. When Song Jing saw her up against so many people yet Luing still didn't give the order to do anything, he panicked even more. This can't go on. No matter what, Yi Wanwan is still master's woman and we received orders to protect her. How can we ignore our duty? If things get really out of hand, I would have to go ahead and intervene by myself. After an entire bottle of hard liquor, Yi Wanwan felt like her entire being was in a furnace and her whole body started burning, even her soul felt as if it was on fire, gradually turning into ashes. The deafening music around her, crazy waves of laughter of the crowd and Chen Shijie's lustful face got closer. The world was spinning around her. Yi Wanwan's head felt like it was about to explode. Her body went limp as she laid on the floor and curled up due to the agonizing pain. Chapter 509, Awakening of Power. Hee, what a fine creature. Her clothes were stained with the pale golden alcohol, infused with the luster of white jade, causing all the men to be dazzled. The way she curled up in pain increased Chen Shijie's masochistic desires. Beautiful, too beautiful, Chen Shijie reached out, extremely excited. However, he obviously had to leave the best for last. He would start with an appetizer. Chen Shijie turned and walked in the direction of Jiang Yanran. Oh, at the same time, the atmosphere in the entire bar reached its climax and everyone was howling wildly. Almost all the men were salivating and their eyes were focused in the direction of the two girls. One was fresh and delicate while the other was extremely stunning. Chen Shijie truly hit the jackpot tonight. Just as Chen Shijie touched Jiang Yanran's body, a slender hand suddenly reached out and grabbed Chen Shijie's wrist. Oh, little chick's awake. Seeing as Yi Wanwan was still resisting, Chen Shijie became even more excited and his face contorted into a sickly grimace. Don't worry. It'll be your turn soon, Chen Shijie spoke while trying to pull his hand back. However, he suddenly realized he couldn't even move his wrist. He tried continuously using his strength to break away but to no avail. What's happening? How is this woman so strong? It was as if he was being restrained tightly by an iron claw. After many attempts to free himself, Chen Shijie's expression changed slightly. This woman is really evil. Damn it, what are all of you standing there for? Don't you know how to come over and help me? Chen Shijie bellowed at his lackeys, exasperated. His lackeys looked at each other with confusion. Help him with what? The girl held onto Chen Shijie's hand tightly and he couldn't get her off no matter how he pulled, so they all thought they were teasing each other and having some fun. Darn it, Chen Shijie felt the pain on his wrist increasing and he panicked so much that he sweated profusely when the girl lying on the floor slowly opened her eyes without any warning. It seemed as if there was an eternal darkness and boundless ice field in her eyes without a hint of human emotion. It sent chills down his spine. Faced with her eyes, Chen Shijie's heart skipped a beat all of a sudden like he was enveloped by an overwhelming iciness that covered the skies and ground. His surroundings were all piercingly cold and his instincts caused him to widen his eyes. In the next second, before Chen Shijie could return to his senses, there was a loud crack. The blood-curdling sound of a bone being fractured resounded. A hand. My hand, The moment Chen Shijie cried out in anguish, his entire body flew out like a broken kite and slammed against a liquor cabinet with a thunderous crash. The bottles of alcohol behind him fell to the floor, shattering into pieces. Following that, Chen Shijie, who was buried by the shards of glass, vomited a mouthful of blood and fainted right away. He laid on the floor unmoving and nobody knew whether he was dead or alive. This scene happened within a few short seconds. In the boisterous bar, it was as if someone switched the off button. The crowd was in total silence. Everybody stared at the woman lying on the floor and instinctively took a step back like they were looking at a freak. What's going on? What just happened? Under the horrific gazes of everyone in the room, Yi Wanwan moved her slender and fair wrist lazily while still looking elegant and content. Then she stood up slowly. Chapter 510, Get Her. All of you. From his angle, he could clearly see Chen Shijie's wrist being twisted at a weird angle by Yi Wanwan. It was definitely broken. She broke it just like that. Not only Song Jing, but Lu Ying's indifferent expression stiffened as well. What just happened? After a moment of dead silence, Chen Shijie's lackeys returned to their senses. What the hell How did that woman do that just now? How did a big man like young Master Chen get beaten up and flung out? The blondie didn't have time to think. He ran over anxiously to take a look at Chen Shijie's condition. Young Master Chen. Young Master Chen, wake up. Chen Shijie slowly woke up, but he was completely stunned and the pain from his chest and wrist made him begin wailing once again. Ah, hand, my hand. The blondie glared evilly in Yi Wanwan's direction and immediately burst into a fit on the spot. Slut! You actually dared to hit young Master Chen. You're dead meat. Get her. All of you. Chen Shijie yelled as well, capture her. I want her life. Seeing his own young master being beaten up by a woman, Chen Shijie's bodyguards charged forward like devils and monsters towards the petite woman. The girl stood in the same spot indifferently and didn't move an inch when she saw the people charging towards her. Her drunken eyes were loaded with boredom. It wasn't until those bodyguards almost reached her that she then turned on her toes subtly. 3 steps. 2 steps. 1 step. A bang reverberated through the air. She used her toe as a pivot, maneuvered 180 degrees, and did a spinning kick. The bodyguard closest to her didn't even have time to make a move and flew backward from the kick. Ah, blood spewed out of the man's mouth and he was unconscious in an instant. Fuck. What's with this woman? She didn't even have any energy to resist before. How did she? The blondie was taken aback. He took a step back instinctively then stammered, what are you afraid of? Get her, all of you attack her at the same time. Nobody dared to let their guards down and they attacked like madmen. Yi Wanwan gripped one of them and threw him directly at another attacker like she was throwing a sandbag, then she turned around, as light as a feather, and kicked another man on the right. Chen Shijie had at least 10 bodyguards with him and each of them was highly trained. But in the end, they didn't even have the power to fight back and were sent flying one after another. The eyes of one of the bald and burly man lit up. He moved swiftly and pounced onto Yi Wanwan from behind. Seeing that she was completely unaware, the baldy was elated. Gotcha! Alas, the second the baldy attacked, there was a swish. It was as if she had eyes at the back of her head since her fair and soft fingers moved horizontally in a position of a karate chop. She struck his neck abruptly, his most vulnerable spot. Oh! His throat felt as if it was being strangled by a sharp claw. The air in his chest rapidly escaped and the baldy's face swelled up into the color of a pig's liver. Being on the verge of dying left his eyes filled with fear. Eventually, everyone looked at the girl like they were looking at a ghost. The girl still looked unconcerned and pleased. It was still the same face and person, yet it was as if she completely transformed into another being, spreading a terrifying and barbaric aura all around her. Chapter 5:11. Is it thrilling enough? Everyone's first reaction was to run. However, this woman's movements were too swift and all of them ended up whining in pain on the ground before they could even move. Ah, spare me, don't kill me, the girl raised her brows and her eyes swept across all the people on the floor like she was looking at ants. It seemed as if she was very disappointed, her beautiful voice flowed out of her cherry blossom lips, tisk, boring, not a single one of them can fight. Within a few short minutes, it was as if she just swatted a couple flies and more than 10 of those bulky bodyguards were hugging their knees, rolling in pain on the floor. The customers were also screaming in panic and the entire place was in chaos. Through the chaos, Yi Wanwan slowly made her way towards Chen Shijie. Stop her! Stop her! Chen Shijie yelled, petrified. However, the bodyguards watched as she walked over and they all crawled backward, none of them dared to step forward. The blondie stood a few steps away, trembling with cold sweat trickling down his back. Following that, a cold light flashed in his eyes. His fingers reached for his back subtly and he pulled out a gun. Bitch! I'll see how arrogant you can get. Surrender obediently. Ha! Ha 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 ha! Yi Wanwan raised her brows slightly when she saw this. Just as the blondie laughed haughtily, he suddenly realized she disappeared. What's going on? Where is she? The blondie was stunned. And at this moment, he suddenly felt a chill that gave him goosebumps from behind. That's not the way you play with guns, the girl's ghostly voice traveled to his ears. You, the blondie was so terrified that his soul left his body. He was tempted to pull the trigger instinctively. The moment he moved his finger, he realized his gun was gone, and without any warning, there was a loud bang. The back of the blondie's hand exploded into a bloody flower. Ah! The blondie's screams nearly broke through the roof. The girl then spun the gun around her finger and looked somewhat unsatisfied. You had the nerve to take out a toy like this? Oh God! Murder! Murder! The music stopped playing, and after the customers heard the gunshot, they screamed and dispersed. The entire bar was a mess. Yi Wanwan didn't even glance at them. She strolled casually towards the luxurious booth. She took a seat in the soft and comfortable booth with one hand on the armrest and another holding a newly opened bottle of red wine, and poured a glass for herself. She twisted her gracefully arched neck and drained the glass in one gulp. Currently, Chen Shijie was lying by her feet and had witnessed for himself how the petite girl wiped out all his lackeys and shot the blondie's hand without even blinking. He was so scared that his entire back was soaked in sweat. Gudu, Chen Shijie swallowed in fear and tried to crawl to the side slowly. He only managed to crawl less than a step away when he felt a sharp pain in his hand. Ow! Chen Shijie started rolling on the floor in agony. A faint smile appeared on the girl's lips as she stepped on the guy's fractured wrist and slowly leaned forward. Her tender and beautiful lips were stained with red wine like a rose dyed with fresh blood. Her husky voice whispered into the man's ear, "What do you think? Is this thrilling enough, seductive enough now?" Chapter 5:12. Sorry about that. Got carried away. The girl's light and casual tone sounded like she was asking, "How's the weather today?" Yet it made him feel as if it was a voice of death from hell. Song Jing wanted to rush over to Yi Wanwan's rescue initially, but now it was as if his feet were nailed into the floor and his eyeballs nearly popped out of their sockets. Yes, so cool. She beat up those guys so smoothly and her movements were remarkably natural. They practically made me burn up with anger. But what exactly is going on here? Why is this sweet and pretty chick suddenly acting like she got possessed by a murderous god? He turned to his captain with a face filled with astonishment, and he noticed that he was in even more shock than he was. His captain was completely dumbfounded. The pain and terror caused Chen Shijie to hug his arm and groan wildly, Enough, that's enough, that's enough. The girl tossed the gun around in her hands like she didn't care for it, and she picked up the bottle of wine next to her reluctantly. With a crash, it hit the floor. She pressed a sharp piece of broken glass on the man's chest near his heart and said softly, "Then, would you like things to get even more thrilling?" The piece of broken glass was pressed against his heart, only separated by a thin piece of clothing. It glided precariously on his skin. Cold sweat covered Chen Shijie's forehead and his body trembled uncontrollably. No more, please spare me. Please spare me. I was wrong. I really learned from my mistake. I was blind and failed to see your greatness." He thought he had stumbled upon a premium good this time, but who knew that the one he offended was a she-devil? Chen Shijie's stomach was almost green from regret. He begged for mercy while his eyes turned to the blondie and all his lackeys to ask for help, but they hid further and further away, wishing they could disappear. "Learned from your mistake?" The girl raised her brows. Chen Shijie quickly replied, yes. I did. I learned my mistake 1,000 times over. Learned it 10,000 times over. Since this is the case, then forget it, the girl said in a benevolent tone. Chen Shijie heaved a huge sigh of relief when he heard that. However, the moment she said that, Chen Shijie let out an even more frightful cry. The broken piece of glass was instantly stabbed into the man's chest right under everyone's stunned gazes. Sorry about that, got carried away. It slipped out of my hand. The girl, who appeared sweet and weak, pulled out a bunch of tissues from the side and slowly wiped the blood that splattered onto her hands without a hint of warmth in her lazy eyes. Chen Shijia laid on the floor and exhaled more air than he was inhaling. Only Song Jing and Luing noticed the precision with which the glass penetrated Chen Shijia's chest. It narrowly avoided vital blood vessels. If he had been stabbed off to the side slightly, Chen Shijia would have died. There were shrieks all around the bar. The blondie, who had been full of arrogance just now, laid among the bodyguards on the floor. The crowd retreated further away, cowering like they were looking at some freak. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly, afraid they would attract the girl's attention. The screams caused one to be frustrated and annoyed. Yi Wanwan slowly reached over and rubbed her temples, which were on the verge of exploding. The steam she let off just now merely reduced her fury temporarily, but in just a moment, that fiery rage in her chest accompanied by the stench of blood on the floor would ignite once again. That pain almost made her dizzy and everything around her started to spin slowly. In the next second, Yi Wanwan held her forehead, unsteady. Her eyes scanned her surroundings. Then her eyes became fixated in a certain direction. Song Jing was initially still in shock, but now he was suddenly faced with a cold and threatening glare. His body stiffened instantly and his brain stopped working as he gulped. His legs started trembling. Damn. Why, is she looking at me? Chapter 5:13, One-sided abuse. The flames in her body exploded, releasing herself from her shackles and destroying the last hint of consciousness she had. Yi Wanwan stood in a daze at the same spot. Her expression was completely blank. The image dormant in the depths of her mind came over her like a surging tide in the storm, drowning her. Crimson-red blood flooded her entire world. The sounds of killing rang in her ears. The murderous aura was so strong that it could make her soul shiver. It was like a big net that was becoming smaller and tighter, closing in on her and slowly forcing her to her limits until she couldn't retreat any further. Kill them. If the Yi Wanwan who beat those people up just now was a female devil, this Yi Wanwan, who had a blank expression and wasn't moving at all, standing at the same spot silently, was like a god of murder descending to earth. She simply stood there, not doing anything, in a daze, but her pair of eyes inexplicably made Song Jing's hairs stand on their ends. Just as Song Jing's heart was thumping hard from the stare, he heard Lu Ying's petrifying shout, "Song Jing! Run!" What? Song Jing didn't understand. However, too late, it was too late. The girl was like a sharp blade from hell, charging towards him madly with many devils that were wailing with anguish. Unlike the bored teasing she directed towards those men before, she now had a frantic, murderous intent, wishing to put a man to his death. It was as if she was drained of a soul and became a violent humanoid weapon that only knew how to kill. Song Jing was scared out of his wits by the overwhelming sense of destruction. He was in a daze for only a split second when his chest received a solid punch. Song Jing's body was immediately flung against the big, cold and hard marble wall with a resounding bang, then he fell to the ground with his body stuck to the wall. He went limp like a doll. Puke. Song Jing's head tilted to the side and he vomited a large pool of fresh blood. His sternum was broken. She actually broke it in one move. Song Jing's face was completely pale. He looked ahead anxiously and all he saw was Yi Wanwan already in a dogfight with Luing. PFFF. Song Jing witnessed with his own eyes how Luing was stepped on and puked blood out, but before he could return to his senses, the girl followed with another attack. She used her palm and slapped Lu Ying's right shoulder. Luing took over 10 steps backward. His body slammed onto the table behind him hard and the glasses came crashing all over the floor. Before Luing could react, the girl was like a demon demanding his life. She trampled on Lu Ying's chest again. Song Jing held his chest in agony. He knew very well how brutally Yi Wanwan fought and Luing already got hit once. If he got another kick, he would be dead for sure. Captain, Song Jing's eyes widened in horror and he rushed over, suppressing the pain. Yi Wanwan's eyes were locked in Lu Ying's direction. However, she didn't even glance at him and sent Song Jing flying with just a kick. Song Jing laid on the floor and felt like he was about to die. Darn it, cough cough. Lu Ying coughed furiously and stared at the girl towering above him and slowly made her way towards him. His face turned extremely ugly. What exactly is going on here? This girl actually. Chapter 5:14, lost control completely. Although they both didn't know what was going on, they were certain that if they gave up at this moment, considering Yi Wanwan's terrifying fighting skills, they would be dead in a second. But if they fought, they might be able to delay their deaths. At the bar, some fled and hid while the others stood at the same spot, frightened and stunned as they watched this girl overturn the place all by herself. Those two men were almost covered in blood, especially the one who looked more formidable. At this moment, there was suddenly a pair of footsteps coming from the door. When 11 and Su Yi rushed over with backup, all they saw was chaos in the bar and a floor covered with bodyguards. Song Jing laid on the floor at his last breath while Lu Ying's bloody body had been sent flying by a kick from a delicate and weak figure. He remained on the ground, unmoving. Who's that? He actually injured Song Jing and Lu Ying to this state. That figure was very swift and had a murderous and tyrannical look. She wanted to continue attacking Lu Ying, who had lost all energy to resist. Lu Ying. When 11 saw this, his expression changed and he didn't have time to think. He sped over and stopped that person's finishing move instantly. The other guards behind 11 saw the state Lu Ying and Song Jing were in and were alarmed. They quickly charged forward as well. Who are you? 11's arm was going numb as he glared at that weak figure. Alas, in the next second, after he saw that girl's face clearly, he was completely shaken. Wan. Miss Wanwan, how could it? Before 11 could react, he felt a pang of pain across his forehead and could only hurry to deal with the torrential attacks from the girl. At the same time, Su Yi also saw who that woman was. Miss Wanwan. What's going on here? How could it be Miss Wanwan? Miss Wanwan. Su Yi yelled anxiously, but it seemed like she couldn't hear him at all. On the contrary, her blood-sucking breath became thicker. The guards 11 brought along saw that the other party was actually Yi Wanwan and they were totally stunned. Many of them didn't dare to attack, afraid they would hurt her. But very soon, they realized they were completely naive. 11 fell to the ground next to Su Yi's feet with a loud bang, and gold stars appeared in front of his eyes. 11. Are you alright? Su Yi quickly helped him up. 11 clutched his ribs. Damn, what's the situation here? Song Jing, who was a couple of steps away, replied weakly, not sure. Miss Wanwan became this way all of a sudden. At first, she was beating up Qin Shijia and his lackeys. Suddenly, she started attacking me and Lu Ying as well. Just as the three people were speaking, the guards 11 brought along couldn't hold on for any longer. 11 and Su Yi saw that so many guards were unable to hold her down and that the deadly figure was now walking in their direction. Swish, Yi Wanwan continued to attack 11. It was as if the more skilled the person was, the more stirred up she would be to kill. Lu Ying couldn't put up a fight anymore, so Yi Wanwan's drive to murder was directed towards 11 instantly. Chapter 5:15, not allowed to fight. He just couldn't believe that this sweet girl could actually transform into a god of murder so suddenly and become so scary. It wasn't like how she was on the trip to Country B, that was a complete act. Everyone looked dazed, unable to comprehend that this person was the sweet and whiny girl who lived with them. Before Yi Wanwan made her final, fatal blow, Su Yi stepped forward and shielded 11. Miss Wanwan. Don't. Yi Wanwan paused. She stared at Su Yi with a blank gaze and hesitated in midair for a brief moment. Su Yi heaved a sigh of relief. Wan, however, before he could complete his sentence, he was sent flying with a kick. Sui landed on the floor near Luing. Sui. Damn it, seeing her cold gaze directed straight at him, getting closer and closer to him with each step, 11 froze like he had just been submerged in an ice bath. Swish, the girl didn't need any weapons, her 4 limbs and body were her sharpest weapons. A razor-like attack came from her hands and 11 gritted his teeth. He could only force himself to stand up and fight, blocking a terrifying attack from her. The two of them started fighting once again. Strictly speaking, Yuan was attacking 11 while 11 was only defending himself. The adrenaline rush he got from his near-death experience didn't last long. 11 slowly made more and more mistakes during combat, he couldn't hold on for much longer. Also, the girl's murderous intent became stronger. She struck a fatal blow to his chest. 11 stood on the ground unsteadily and closed his eyes in despair. Miss Wan. Not far off, Sui shouted uncontrollably, in a panic. 11. Song Jing and Lu Ying's faces changed. At this very moment, a sudden burst of sound came and a huge pressure collided with the girl's body. Time seemed to stop at that moment. The bone-breaking pain 11 was anticipating didn't happen. He opened his eyes in a cold sweat and he saw a tall and slender figure who appeared out of nowhere. He was standing there with his back to the light with his palm locked firmly around the girl's wrist, blocking that fatal blow. Si Han's entire body looked as if it brought along the wind and snow from a piercingly cold place. His dark gaze swept across all the guards on the floor then stopped on the girl in front of him. His face was extremely rigid. 9th. Ninth Master, Sui and the others looked in Si Han's direction. Yuan seemed sluggish as she looked at her own wrist that was being gripped forcefully. Tracing the cool palm upwards, her eyes reached the face of the man before her. In her vacant, black pupils, there was a reflection of the man's silhouette. The girl seemed to despise this feeling of being imprisoned as her brows suddenly furrowed dangerously. Sui and the others had their hearts in their throats when they saw this. 9th Master. Be careful. Miss Wan isn't herself. Si Han glared at the hostile girl. It was like there was a storm brewing in his eyes and he was using every ounce of strength to suppress the explosive anger in his chest. Under the girl's increasingly menacing gaze, he put a sudden force on her wrist and in the next second, he pressed her warm body into his embrace and spat out ice-cold words. Didn't I tell you before that you're not allowed to fight? Chapter 5:16, I'm not the one who changed, 9th. 9th Master, it's dangerous. Yuan stared at the man's face which looked even more stunning when he was in a rage like he'd gone to hell and back. The violence and murderous intent in her eyes slowly subsided like the tide. Ajio, the girl's bone-chilling and threatening aura dissipated instantly like she knew she was finally safe. Her body left combat mode and relaxed instantly from being severely overworked. Even though Si Han's expression was still extremely icy, the way he carried her by her waist was very gentle. Sui, send that girl back and block off all news from tonight's incident. Si Han ordered then picked up Yuan and strode away. Seeing Yuan being carried away by his master like she was a harmless little kitten, everyone was stunned for a long time before letting out a huge sigh of relief. They looked like they had just been given a second chance in life. 11 had been so nervous that everything that happened was a blur. He was still in a daze. I was saved. That was just terrifying. He had never felt such an overwhelming sense of murder and evil even from world-class mercenaries and disciples from influential ancient martial artists. But from his master's expression, although he was mad, he didn't look surprised. Master already knew about Miss Wan's true capabilities. From when Yuan was disguised as Black Widow, he already knew she wasn't a simpleton. At the family meeting, she was able to block the guard from punishing Sui with her bare hands. This also led him to believe she had some skills. But tonight, her true abilities were revealed. When Sui, who was confused by his fall, heard Si Han's orders, he hurriedly got up and responded, yes. Although the kick that sent him flying seemed rough, he only felt some pain around his chest. He was much better off compared to Luing and Eleven's injuries. Su-yi stared in a daze at the retreating figures of his master carrying the girl, and he inexplicitly recalled what Si-han told Luing before. Master said, he likes girls that are unparalleled. When Su-yi returned to his senses, he quickly arranged for someone to take Jiang Yan-ren home, then blocked off all information about tonight's incident. As for Qin Shijie, after tonight, I'm afraid the Qin family will be expelled from Imperial City. 9th. Ninth Master. The blondie curled up in the corner had been in shock, and right now, he was also dumbfounded, his face filled with disbelief. How could that be? She's actually Si-han's woman. No wonder she was so scary. It's over, we're doomed. Su-yi didn't bother with those people, he casually walked past them and strolled up to Luing, who was on the verge of dying. The news he received was that Miss Wanwan got into trouble with Qin Shijie and his gang at the bar. Luing and Song Jing accompanied Miss Wanwan to the bar, so how did such a major incident happen? He knew Luing too well, and it wasn't difficult for him to guess what unfolded at the bar. Su-yi remained at the same spot and looked down at the man lying on the floor. Luing, do you remember the oath we made together that time? Luing slowly raised his head and looked somewhat stunned. Su-yi looked at him calmly and spoke very carefully, enunciating each word. Luing, I'm not the one who changed. You are. He also wasn't the one who had forgotten who he was and who he was loyal to. Since they were once friends, he ended his speech there. After Su-yi said that, he abruptly left. Chapter 5:17. Is she very scary? Si-han stared at the girl tucked in bed. The gentleness in his eyes was tossed about by the wind and rain. The scene at the bar kept replaying in his mind. The girl was forced to her limit and fought, not knowing she was exhausted. That numb, cold little face. She became so calm the moment she saw him. It was as if a sharp claw was gripping the softest part of his heart. Si-han felt a suffocating pain. At the same time, in another villa in Imperial City, Si-xia sat in front of the computer screen in a daze. One set of images after another appeared on the screen. Gun and fresh flowers. Strawberry cake and almond cake. Smoke from chimneys spiraling upwards and a galaxy of stars. The images repeated themselves over and over again on the screen. Suddenly, a special reminder rang out. The teenager absent-mindedly opened his email and read the news as usual without high expectations. There was a short clip attached in the email. The video was quite shaky. Through the dim lighting and messy crowd, the girl moved so swiftly that only a vague figure of her could be seen. Her moves were accurate and each attack was meant to kill. Finally, she sent Luing flying with a kick to his chest. The second he opened the clip, Si-xia stood up instantly and his expression changed. His light gray eyes lit up as he murmured in disbelief, "Jia Jia, 1." A few days later, in the morning. The rays of sun seeped through the gaps in the leaves and sprinkled a golden brilliance in the room. The gentle breeze ruffled the tree leaves lightly, leading to some rustling. A girl quietly laid on the soft and snow-white bedding. Her clean little face was innocent and flawless without a single speck of dust on it, and she was as gentle as a delicate flower stalk in a greenhouse, unable to withstand any wind or rain. Yi Wanwan was awoken by the pain in her head. Her hangover made her feel like there was an axe wedged between her head, chopping it in half. The pain was excruciating. Damn it. What happened? Why am I back in Jean Garden? I remember that last night. I went to the bar to look for Jiang Yan-ran, and after that, I seemed to have bumped into a group of troublemakers. It felt like those people forced quite a bit of liquor down my throat. Then I can't really remember what happened after that. Right, where's Si-han? Yi Wanwan realized there was nobody by her side, so she climbed out of bed while rubbing her painful temples. The moment she sat up and prepared to get up, she nearly fell head first on the ground. Fuck. What's going on? Her entire body felt as if it had been running the entire night around Imperial City. Her muscles were aching so badly and her legs didn't even feel like they belonged to her. Simply lifting her knee caused her to grit her teeth in agony. Damn it! What did I do last night? How did I get beaten up so badly? Yuan was full of suspicions. She needed to use the edge of the bed to support herself and inch her way out of the room. With great difficulty, Yuan finally reached the door and slowly stretched to push the door open. When she pushed the door open, there happened to be two guards conversing right outside the door. Thus, Yuan quickly asked the two of them for Han's whereabouts. May I ask, where's? She merely opened her mouth when the two guards jolted upon seeing her as if they were looking at a monster. Their expressions of horror were extreme and even the hairs on their heads were about to stand upright. After loudly wailing, "Ow," the two of them ran away and disappeared. Where's your master? Yuan didn't have a chance to complete her sentence. She froze with her arm in midair and the corners of her mouth twitched. What's the meaning of this? Am I that scary? Chapter 518, Who took the chance to hit me while I wasn't paying attention? Yuan shouted in their direction, annoyed. The entire hallway was empty and nobody replied to her at all. The two guards already disappeared. If she wasn't mistaken, those two people hadn't even taken the stairs, they simply jumped out the window into the yard. Was that really necessary? What's going on here? Yuan stood in a daze for a long time. She had no other options and could only wait until her body recovered slightly before going downstairs. Currently, the living room was dead silent. Han sat on the sofa with a frosty expression. Su-yi was next to him with a grave face. 11 and his men stood solemnly in two straight rows, and in the middle were Lu-ying and Song-jing. Song-jing lowered his head and said, ashamed and regretful, I didn't handle the situation well and wasn't able to protect Miss Yi. I'm willing to accept any punishment. Lu-ying said with a heavy expression, this has nothing to do with Song-jing. I stopped him from taking action. On the sofa, Han's cold eyes swept across everyone. He remained silent. The appalling silence stagnated the air in the room, causing one to almost choke. At this moment, a pair of light footsteps came from behind. The footsteps came down the stairs. Ta-ta-ta. Yuan finally managed to climb down the staircase, then she stretched her back and stood a few steps away from everyone, panting and speaking weakly, may I interrupt? Swish, in a split second, Su-yi, 11, Song-jing and all the guards in the living room retreated swiftly, leaving a large empty space with only Yuan standing there by herself. Every pair of eyes was filled with fear as they stared at her and kept their guards up. Everyone looked as if there was a great enemy approaching. Not again. Yuan's face turned black instantly. What's wrong with these people? Why are all of them giving me this look? Song-jing was aware his hatred for her was second only to his hatred for Lu-ying and he struggled to swallow his spit. His calves started trembling again and his chest injury seemed to hurt even more as well. Lu-ying's face turned white at the same time. Yuan glanced strangely at everybody who had retreated far away from her. Song-jing was badly battered, his arm was in a sling around his neck and he looked like a mistreated mistress by the way he looked at her. Half of 11's face was swollen and he was wearing a foot splint, Suyi's forehead was bandaged, and Lu-ying was the worst, he looked like a mummy with his entire body wrapped in bandages. Almost everyone had injuries. Yuan knitted her brows. What happened to all of you? She then muttered, did you guys get hurt while trying to save me from that lecher? Everyone's expression, seeing the weird looks they gave her, that didn't seem to be the case, but nobody told her what happened exactly. Yuan grew even more suspicious as she muttered and walked towards Han. Yuan rubbed her arm pitifully and complained, Ajo, why am I aching everywhere? Did they take the chance to hit me last night while I wasn't paying attention? 11, Su-yi, Song-jing, Lu Ying and all the guards were speechless. Madam, are you kidding me right now? We hit you? This is ridiculous, we've never been more offended in our lives. Chapter 519, How could she be an ordinary person? Yu Wanwan noticed Si Yihan didn't look too good, so she acted pitiful on purpose. Now that her acting had some effectiveness, she was quick-witted and moved slowly towards him. Everywhere. It hurts everywhere. My muscles are aching and painful. My bones feel like they were fractured by someone then screwed back. And here. I'm injured here too. Yu Wanwan lifted a finger. There was some broken skin around her nail. It was truly a huge wound. Those who had been beaten until their flesh was punctured, nose bled, and face swelled felt misery in their hearts. Su-yi, go get the first aid kit, Si Yihan said. Su-yi quickly got up and brought the first aid kit over. Si Yihan held Yu Wanwan's finger, disinfected it and wrapped it up. Yu Wanwan then had another request. I don't want this, I don't want this. I want a pretty ribbon. Si Yihan gave her side eye but he complied and his long and slim fingers weaved through the gauze. Shortly after, he tied a very beautiful ribbon. All the single dogs in the house were injured both mentally and physically. Si Yihan stared at Yu Wanwan's bruised joint and his face darkened. Yu Wanwan suddenly recalled the rule which banned her from getting injured. She didn't dare to go too far anymore and she hurriedly said, I probably fell when I was tipsy. It's nothing, it's nothing. Just blow it for me and it won't hurt anymore. Si Yihan checked her elbow joints gently and said sternly, you haven't exercised for a long time. From today onwards, I'll get someone to teach you some basic skills and you have to train every single day. Si Yihan turned to 11. 11. When 11 heard Si Yihan calling him, he quickly limped over. Yes. Si Yihan, starting from today, you'll be her trainer. What? 11 was taken aback. He was so shocked that he stared at his master and almost thought he was hearing things. Si Yihan's eyes turned cold. You have a problem? Of course I have a problem. It's a big problem, okay? How could I possibly train Miss Wanwan? It's basically asking me to be a human punching bag, alright? No, no problem. 11 plucked up the courage to reply. Actually, duties like this shouldn't be performed by me. Master should have gotten Lu Ying to do it, but Master actually asked me instead. Seems like, Lu Ying's mistake this time was too serious. No matter how unhappy he was with Yu Wanwan, he shouldn't have blatantly gone against Master's orders. In dealing with this matter, he definitely brought in his personal emotions. Actually, Yu Wanwan hated exercising, but seeing that Si Yihan already arranged things for her, and considering last night's incident, she felt she really needed the training. At least she'd be able to protect herself if something like this happened again in the future. Hence, Yu Wanwan said, then alright. 11, I'll have to trouble you to take care of me in the future. Please teach me some self-defense strategies. 11's smile was uglier than a sob. Sure, isn't he the one who needs to be taught some self-defense tactics? All the other guards in the house looked at the chick who had returned to her delicate and pretty self and were utterly confused. Judging by Yu Wanwan's reaction, it seemed like she forgot everything after she became sober. Whenever she's drunk, she gets possessed by the god of murder and has off-the-chart combat skills. What kind of magical function is this? They were certainly too naive. How could Master like just any ordinary girl? Chapter 520, Removal of Power. As for Yu Wanwan, she didn't remember anything from when she was drunk and really thought her body was aching due to a fall. Of course, she felt like many things were amiss, but because Su-yi and the others told her the same false story, she didn't have any reason to be suspicious. Oh dear. Where's Yen Ran? How's Yen Ran? Yu Wanwan suddenly remembered. Su-yi arranged for someone to take her home already. Han replied. Was she hurt? No. That's good, that's good, Yuan heaved a sigh of relief. Yuan spoke while she turned to Luing and Song Jing without any expression on her face. Last night, they simply stood by while she was in danger, but this was nothing compared to what she went through in her previous life. Yuan retracted her gaze. I won't disturb you guys any further, then. Please continue. She didn't really care how Han was going to deal with the two of them. All she cared about now was working on increasing her abilities. She didn't want something like last night to happen again. Ever since her rebirth, she had been frantically trying to change herself and acquire more knowledge, but she hadn't thought of strengthening her skills. Trainer 11, I'll see you soon. Yuan gave 11 a brief salute. Cough cough. Sure, 11 replied perfunctorily. After Yuan left, the living room returned to its initial dead silence. Luing stood there and looked down without saying a single word. There still needed to be punishment for Song Jing and Luing. In 1 second, everyone's eyes were on Han, waiting for his verdict. Although Miss Yi didn't need to be protected, Luing and Song Jing's responsibilities couldn't be pushed away, especially for Luing. Everyone knew about Lu Ying's bias against Yuan, but he really went too far this time. After some time, the man's chilly voice finally resounded in the living room. From today onwards, Luing will be dismissed of all his duties as captain and 11 will take over. Luing raised his head immediately after Han spoke like he couldn't believe it at all. The others looked at each other in confusion yet didn't dare to breathe loudly. He was actually, directly stripped off his power. A punishment like this was more serious than being whipped a few hundred times. The one who was in even more shock was 11. With regards to the heavy responsibility entrusted to him by Han, he was flattered, but he was merely the leader of Dark Team 1, how could he manage the position of head captain? Su Yi and Luing were the master's left and right-hand men, one for internal affairs and the other for external. Needless to say, the importance of these two people was extraordinary. The most crucial thing was that there was an annual assessment for the position of head captain, and one of the most important aspects was the test of fighting skills. Anyone could challenge the captain, and Luing already won 3 times consecutively. Although he was quite skilled, he was always defeated by Luing. Everyone would probably be unhappy with this arrangement. After all, not everyone could compare to Miss Ye's metamorphosis. Song Jing didn't expect Lu Ying's punishment would be so severe and he panicked instantly. Ninth Master, isn't this punishment a little too severe? It was one mistake. Please reconsider. Song Jing, stop it. Luing stopped Song Jing. Then he removed a flaming red ring from his finger, slowly walked towards 11 and passed the ring over to him. Faced with Lu Ying's cold expression, 11 stared at that ring akin to a piping hot potato and smiled bitterly in his heart. The head captain assessment this year was coming up. If he replaced Lu Ying's position now, he would have to accept challenges from the team, and Luing would also be eligible to challenge him. If he lost to Luing again. Chapter 521. How could he win after Han left? The atmosphere in the living room was stagnant. 11 held the ring in his hand and coughed lightly. He was about to speak when Luing spoke first with a rigid expression. Don't get too excited, I'll be taking this ring back very soon. After Luing said his piece, he turned and left immediately. Song Ling glanced at 11 then quickly tried to catch up with Luing. 11 could only retract what he wanted to say and stood awkwardly in place. The guards close to 11 said unhappily, this guy's too arrogant, huh? What's he trying to say? He was in the wrong and was stripped of his post. It wasn't like our leader stole his position, right? 11 sighed helplessly. Forget it. It's true that I'm not skilled enough. Even though his skills weren't too bad, he had never beaten Luing before. This post of head captain was only handed to him due to Lu Ying's wrongdoing. The upcoming head captain assessment was a couple months away. How could he beat Luing in such a short period of time? He probably wouldn't remain in this post for long. After Yi Wanwan was forced to gulp down 2 big bowls of soup to sober up, she was finally allowed to leave the house. She asked Jiang Yanran and Chu Feng to come out. Before she left, she brought along Han Xianyu's autographed album. She was too busy before and hadn't had the time to give it to Jiang Yanran. Previously, she told Han Xianyu that a friend of hers was his fan and Han Xianyu gave her 10 signed albums. In case Chu Feng really did something that let Jiang Yanran down. Maybe her idol could cheer her up a bit. However, she still felt there must have been some misunderstanding. In a nearby restaurant at University City, Yi Wanwan and the anxious Jiang Yanran sat opposite one another. Yanran, did anything happen when you were at the bar last night? Yi Wanwan asked out of concern. Jiang Yanran shook her head. I had too much to drink and only recalled that you came over and convinced me to go home. What happened anyway? Were you the one who took me home last night? Jiang Yanran was drunk at that time and didn't know what happened after that either. Yi Wanwan was relieved. To prevent her from worrying, she didn't mention the incident with those guys. Nothing much. I was the one who took you home. Yi Wanwan frowned and looked at the time on her phone. Why isn't Chu Feng here yet? It couldn't be that he's really guilty and didn't dare to come, right? Compared to last night, Jiang Yanran was much calmer and seemingly mentally prepared for the worst-case scenario. The two of them waited for about half an hour before Chu Feng finally arrived. The teenager wore a white tracksuit and ran over panting, a thin layer of sweat on his forehead. Yanran. I'm so sorry. Sorry I'm late. Chu Feng said apologetically while trying to catch his breath. Where did you go? Why did you take so long to get here? Yi Wanwan probed with an investigative look. Chu Feng seemed to be avoiding something. Nothing, there was a traffic jam. Yi Wanwan's gaze became serious. You're telling me there's a jam at this hour? Jiang Yanran sat there in silence, not saying a word. Why yes, because an accident happened in front, Chu Feng stammered. Seeing how the teenager was obviously lying, Yi Wanwan couldn't be bothered to waste any more time with him and directly showed him the photo Jiang Yanran sent to her. You were with this girl again, huh? You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.